A wealthy patron notices a humble waitress secretly feeding his disabled dog on her own dime. In a single compassionate act, she wins more than the dog's affection. She captures the millionaire's heart, forever changing her own destiny in ways no one in the restaurant could have imagined. Evening shadows pooled against the crisp table linens at La Belle Cuisine, a refined restaurant that prided itself on gourmet dishes and exclusivity. Outside, sleek cars lined the curb, and suited patrons glided through the polished entrance. Amid the quiet buzz of soft music and clinking glassware, Catherine, a young waitress, hurried between tables with the grace of someone used to blending into the background. Tonight was no different, except for one new face, a solitary customer with an air of understated power. He arrived dressed simply, though the cut of his clothing hinted at wealth. A large wheelchair-accessible crate stood beside him, from which a gentle dog peered out. The dog's cloudy eyes and carefully tended harness indicated some disability, perhaps sight issues or limited mobility. A hush fell in the immediate vicinity, some patrons shooting discreet glances. Pets were rarely allowed, but a quiet nod from the restaurant manager suggested this man's presence was beyond typical regulations. Throughout the meal, the man treated the dog with tender care. Catherine noticed how he placed water at the dog's side, calmly adjusting its cushion. The man himself ordered sparingly, sampling only a few dishes. Most customers in his position might demand the best wines or a parade of courses, but he sipped water. Something about him radiated a heavy loneliness, as though extravagant dining no longer stirred him. Observing the dog's subdued movements tugged at Catherine's heart. She imagined it might be hungry or in need of something gentle to chew. Breaking a small restaurant rule, she quietly brought leftover scraps, carefully selected not to upset the dog's stomach, and offered them from her palm during a lull in her duties. The dog sniffed her trembling hand, tail wagging faintly, as if grateful. She half expected a reprimand from her manager for this small kindness, but the love in the dog's eyes was worth the risk. Little did Catherine realize that her simple gesture, performed in secret, was not so secret after all. The reserved millionaire witnessed everything, his guarded features flickering with emotion he rarely let show. In that single moment, the quiet waitress who thought she was invisible did more than feed a disabled dog. She set in motion a remarkable chain of events that would rewrite her future entirely. Catherine tried to ignore her own rumbling stomach as she wove between tables, balancing a tray of expensive entrees. La Belle Cuisine's shift always left her famished. She often rushed straight from her daytime job at a local boutique to the restaurant without time to eat. Even so, she never once let it show. A consistent smile and graceful movements were key to good tips, especially when clientele ranged from busy corporate types to out-of-town visitors who'd heard of the restaurant's acclaim. That night, though, she found herself sneaking extra looks at the quiet man near the corner. Despite the subdued lighting, it was impossible not to notice the discreet wheelchair ramp that had been set up near his table. He sat, posture relaxed, in a chair that gave away little about him, no brand logos or flashy style. Yet something in the fabric, the subtle cut, hinted at expensive tailoring. At his feet rested the specialized crate, partially open, from which a large dog peeked out. It was a German shepherd, though its cloudy eyes suggested partial blindness or advanced age. The man occasionally reached down to stroke the dog's head, a gentle motion that spoke of deep affection. Catherine had seen service animals occasionally accompany patrons, but rarely in this upscale setting. The manager, Antoine, usually frowned on animals, yet tonight he'd made an exception. Antoine himself had led the gentleman to a secluded table, murmuring that everything was fine. No one challenged it. The man's presence exuded a low-key authority that even the toughest manager would hesitate to contradict. Early into the dinner, Catherine noticed something. The man barely ate. He ordered a small bowl of soup, nibbled a bite or two, then set his spoon aside. Meanwhile, whenever the dog shifted, his focus snapped downward, concern shining in his eyes. From her vantage near the service station, Catherine saw the dog's muzzle quiver, almost like it was searching for something. She guessed it might be hungry or used to being fed at certain intervals. Her heart went out to it. She'd grown up with rescued animals in her grandparents' small farm. learning that compassion toward creatures was an unspoken moral code. Now, working 2 jobs in the bustling city, she lacked the space or money to keep a pet, but her empathy never faded. Stealing a glance at the clock, she confirmed she had a few spare moments before delivering the next set of entrees. Quietly, she slipped into the kitchen. Keeping an eye on Chef Bernard, who demanded absolute discipline from staff, she quickly selected a few scraps from the leftover portion of a prime cut about to be discarded. Chefs typically detested any waste, but they had no illusions about repurposing a half-trimmed piece of meat. Gathering it in a napkin, Catherine felt a surge of nerves. If Antoine or Chef Bernard spotted her, there'd be trouble. But the memory of the dog's unseeing eyes spurred her on. Returning to the main dining area, she found the man's table still empty of further orders. He'd declined a second dish, apparently uninterested. With silent steps, Catherine approached from the dog's side, half concealing the morsel of meat. Kneeling down, she whispered, "Hey, buddy," letting the dog catch her scent first. Its ears perked, muzzle shifting toward her. Slowly, she offered the scrap of food. The dog sniffed, tail giving a faint wag. Catherine's heart warmed, a spark of happiness breaking the monotony of her shift. She thought she was hidden behind a nearby column, but in the reflection of a polished mirror on the opposite wall, the man observed everything. Catherine didn't realize it until she rose, turning to scuttle away. Her eyes flicked to the mirror and caught his gaze for the briefest moment. Her cheeks flamed, fear clenching her chest. She expected annoyance or disapproval. Instead, she saw the faintest suggestion of a smile, quickly masked by a neutral expression. He gave a slight nod, acknowledging her act without immediate comment. Mortified, Catherine hurried off to attend other tables. Moments later, Antoine summoned her. Catherine braced, convinced the man had complained or the manager had witnessed her impromptu dog feeding. But Antoine's stern face revealed no such anger, only an instruction that the man at the corner table wished to speak with her personally regarding his bill. Catherine swallowed, nodding. In the swirl of perfumed air and gentle clinks of silverware, she approached the table once more. The man studied her without speaking for a long moment. She forced a polite smile. "Sir, is there anything else I can get you?" She half expected to be scolded about the dog scraps or asked if she'd tampered with his meal. Instead, he spoke in a low, kind tone. "You've been very attentive tonight. Thank you." Catherine's breath hitched in relief, confusion swirling. "Oh, yes, of course. I'm just glad you and your dog are comfortable." He gestured to the plate of barely touched soup. "I'm sorry for ordering and not eating much. Truth is, I only came here out of obligation. A friend recommended this place, but my appetite's not great these days." She nodded sympathetically. "No worries, sir. I hope the environment wasn't too bright or loud for your dog." He glanced down, smoothing his hand over the dog's ears. "She's mostly blind, you see," he said quietly. "But I appreciate your care. The small kindness you offered," his voice softened, "didn't go unnoticed." Heat warmed Catherine's cheeks, and she almost apologized for bending the rules, but the man gently waved off any disclaimers. "In fact," he said, rummaging inside his jacket, "I'd like to personally ensure you're recognized for your thoughtfulness." Catherine blinked. Was he about to slip her a large tip? She felt torn. Money would help her pay off endless bills, yet an extravagant sum might spark the manager's suspicion. In that suspended moment, the man's understated aura of wealth crystallized. She realized more than ever that he wasn't an ordinary patron. The dog at his feet was no ordinary service dog either. Its lavish harness, quietly regal demeanor, and specialized crate all screamed top-of-the-line resources. Her pulse quickened, sensing a deeper story behind his lonely dining. Little did she know just how drastically the man's gratitude would manifest, or how the dog's quiet acceptance of her leftover scraps would catapult her life to heights beyond any dream. Catherine stood in subdued awe as the distinguished man rummaged inside his tailored jacket. Her heart thudded. Was he fetching a wallet to tip her, or some personal card? A flutter of nerves rose. Big tips weren't unheard of in an upscale restaurant, but she'd never had such a direct exchange after so brief a conversation. Even the dog seemed to sense the moment's significance, lifting its head, ears perked. At last, The man withdrew not a wad of bills, but a small metallic case. Clicking it open, he pulled out a sleek business card embossed in gold letters. He handed it to Catherine. "My name is Ethan Rochester," he said quietly. "If you ever need assistance, financial or otherwise, please reach out. I don't often find genuine kindness in my circles." His voice carried a sadness, as though he expected no one to empathize with him or his dog. Catherine blinked, scanning the card. It bore a single phone number, with Rochester Holdings beneath his name. Her initial confusion sharpened into realization. Rochester Holdings. She'd heard that name in passing, some investment firm rumored to be extremely lucrative. Some said it was owned by a reclusive millionaire. She looked up, mouth drying. This gentleman was more than wealthy. He was among the city's top-tier financiers. "Oh, sir, she stammered, uncertain how to respond. Surely, he didn't mean she should call him for any whimsical reason. She felt a swirl of embarrassment, worried about the manager's reaction if he noticed a personal exchange with a customer. But Ethan's calm, almost sorrowful expression eased her fear. The dog nuzzled Ethan's hand, as though giving silent approval. He continued, voice gentle but firm. "Truly, Ms. Catherine, I appreciate what you did for my dog. Most wouldn't risk trouble with their boss to feed a disabled animal, especially a stranger's. That generosity shouldn't go unacknowledged." He paused, glancing at the dog's harness. "She's partially blind. Some days, she gets anxious in unfamiliar places. Your small kindness helps more than you know." Catherine swallowed, her pulse leaping. She bowed her head, voice trembling with sincerity. "Sir, it was nothing. I just have a soft spot for animals, especially ones who can't fend for themselves." She inhaled, recalling how that leftover piece of prime cut from the kitchen might get her a lecture, but seeing the dog's mild wag had felt worth it. "I'm sorry if it was out of line." Ethan's eyes crinkled slightly. "Not at all. I'm grateful. Actually," he hesitated, then flicked a glance around. Lowering his voice, he added, "If it's not too forward, I'm dining alone tomorrow too. My dog deserves a friendly face. Perhaps I can arrange we come here again so she sees you. Maybe share a conversation." A wave of reticence flickered, as though he rarely extended such invites. Catherine's cheeks warmed. Was this a simple request for a friendly waitress or something more? She recalled how reclusive he seemed, how the dog apparently took precedence in his life. Maybe he was lonely. Another swirl of conflicting feelings roiled inside her. Excitement, caution, but also curiosity. The man was offering to return, specifically seeking her presence. She gave a small nod, smiling shyly. "Of course. I'd be happy to help if you choose to dine again." Suddenly, a throat cleared behind them. The manager, Antoine, approached with measured steps. His eyes flicked to the business card in Catherine's hand, then to Ethan. He put on a polished grin. "Mr. Rochester, is everything to your satisfaction?" His tone was borderline obsequious. Evidently, he recognized the power Ethan commanded. Ethan nodded politely. "Yes, thank you. Catherine here has been a splendid server." Antoine's posture stiffened, turning to Catherine with a narrowed gaze. "Ah, excellent. Well done, Catherine." The undercurrent in his expression suggested he'd learned something new about the patron's identity, and thus tolerated the dog's presence and any minor rule-bending. Catherine's nerves pricked. Would Antoine scold her later for the leftover scraps? But for now he wore a forced pleasantness. "We do hope you'll visit again, Mr. Rochester," Antoine said. "Our staff is always ready to accommodate your needs." Ethan's mouth curved in a faint smile, as though seeing through the manager's sudden warmth. He shifted his attention back to Catherine. "I'll see you soon then." Gently stroking his dog's ears, he rose, cane in hand, though more as a guiding tool for the dog. Catherine glimpsed that the dog, indeed, was not just partially blind, but also had a slight limp. Her heart squeezed with empathy. She gave a small bow, returning to her duties. As Ethan left, the restaurant's hush briefly parted to let him pass, dog ambling at his side. Several diners looked up in mild wonder. It wasn't common to see a well-dressed man with a partially disabled dog in such a posh place, leaving with an air of quiet authority. Catherine watched him vanish through the door, her mind spinning. A part of her dreaded the manager's response. Another part soared with the unexpected invitation, and she couldn't deny a spark of curiosity about the man's sorrowful gaze, the dog's disability, and his mention of needing conversation. When she returned to the staff station, a senior waiter teased, "You made quite the impression on your corner table guest, no?" He winked. Catherine shrugged, feigning casualness, her cheeks burning. She pocketed the business card, determined to keep it hidden. After closing time, while counting out her tips, Catherine discovered an envelope slipped beneath a folded napkin at the corner table. Carefully opening it, her breath caught. It contained an amount far exceeding any normal gratuity, easily enough to cover a month's rent. She nearly dropped it in shock. On the plain envelope was scrawled a note, "For your kindness and for the dog." No signature, but the meaning was clear. A wave of conflicting emotions barreled through her. Gratitude, disbelief, and worry about the manager's reaction if he found out. She decided to keep it silent for the moment, swiftly tucking the envelope away. Her entire body trembled. This was no ordinary diner, leaving a thank you. This was a glimpse into the man's wealth, yet also his readiness to reward small compassion. Catherine exhaled shakily, mind racing. Could she accept such generosity, guilt-free? It was too late for regrets. The dog, his quiet friend, and the man who apparently had the power to change fortunes had left her life, at least until tomorrow, if he truly meant to return. That single note and envelope of money signaled more than a tip. It was an open door to something Catherine never dared imagine. The first twist had emerged: a wealthy patron, a waitress with hidden compassion, and a disabled dog bridging their worlds. If Catherine's instincts were right, what started as a small kindness would unravel into an extraordinary chain of events, one that might lift her from struggle to unexpected opportunity, forging a bond no one at La Belle Cuisine would see coming. Catherine spent the next day teetering between excitement and unease. The envelope of money she'd discovered after closing, an astonishing tip from Ethan Rochester, now sat tucked in her nightstand drawer at home. She hadn't dared spend it yet, unsure if accepting such generosity was right. Part of her felt relief, imagining covering overdue rent or chipping away at mounting bills. Another part of her hesitated. Could this gift be misunderstood? Or might it come with strings attached? Upon waking, she caught her reflection in the small mirror above her cluttered dresser, a tired but hopeful face, weighed by thoughts of that dog's milky eyes and the man's quiet sorrow. A swirl of possibility rose. If he truly returned that evening, what would she say? How did one handle conversation with a wealthy patron who might be not just a tipper, but someone stepping beyond typical boundaries? Her shift at the boutique that morning crawled by. Customers filtered in, browsing clothes, seeking advice. Normally, Catherine's mind stayed focused on selling outfits and rearranging displays, but today she went through motions with minimal energy. The dog and the man lingered at the forefront of her mind. She replayed that brief conversation, the dog's gentle acceptance of her leftover scraps, Ethan's subdued gratitude, and the fleeting sadness in his eyes when he mentioned having no appetite these days. Arriving at La Belle Cuisine for her evening shift, Catherine braced for potential scolding from Antoine. The manager rarely let staff get too friendly with patrons, especially wealthy ones who might see it as unprofessional. Indeed, no sooner had she stepped into the staff lounge than Antoine cornered her, arms folded. "So," he began, voice carefully neutral, "Mr. Rochester left a substantial gratuity last night. Did you receive it?" Catherine's stomach lurched. She'd hoped to avoid discussing the envelope. Keeping her tone measured, she confessed, "I found an envelope, yes, and I wanted to thank him if he comes again." Antoine's eyes flicked with speculation. "He specifically requested you serve him tonight. The reservation is for a corner table again. Same time." Catherine's heart skipped. "He's coming back so soon." She tried to mask her delight. The manager's lips curved in a forced smile. "Yes, make no mistake, he's an important client. Please keep everything impeccable." Catherine nodded, reading the subtext. Antoine was simultaneously grateful for the large tip and wary of Catherine's personal involvement. In his view, Waitresses who got too chummy with patrons risked scandal or crossing professional lines. She swallowed, mentally preparing for that balancing act. Word spread among the other waitstaff that Rochester was returning, specifically requesting Catherine. A few teased her about snagging a sugar daddy. Others envied the big tip rumored from last night. She tried to laugh it off, focusing on her duties. Yet an undercurrent of curiosity bubbled. Did Ethan want more conversation, or was he merely ensuring the dog had a friendly face? Amid restocking table linens, her best friend on staff, Maria, pulled her aside. "Cat, be careful," she whispered. "He's a big deal, but these high rollers sometimes play with people's emotions. I don't want you to get hurt." Catherine gave a grateful smile. "I know, thanks. I'm not expecting anything. He just wants to dine with his dog, and he appreciated me being kind." But inside, a small voice admitted she hoped for something more, a chance to truly connect, or at least help with the dog's comfort. Evening dusk settled, transforming La Belle Cuisine into its candlelit elegance. Right on schedule, Ethan Rochester arrived, dog at his side in that special rolling crate. The maitre d' greeted him with utmost courtesy, leading him to the corner table. Catherine took a calming breath, approached with a warm but not overly bright smile. The dog perked up, tail wagging softly at the sight of her. That gesture alone melted Catherine's nerves. Tonight, Ethan wore a slight smile, small but more open than before. "Thank you for having us again," he said, voice quiet. "I hope this isn't an imposition." She shook her head, noticing the dog's ears tilt, as if seeking scraps again. "No, sir, not at all. I'm honored you came back." Mentally, she scolded herself for sounding too eager, but he only nodded. Settling into the routine, Catherine took his order, a light dish again. She offered the dog a fresh bowl of water. Unlike the prior night, Ethan politely asked if the kitchen might prepare a small portion of dog-friendly meat. Catherine relayed the request. Antoine, upon hearing it, didn't object. If it meant pleasing a valuable customer, he'd do it. The dog, tail still wagging, seemed content with the arrangement. No leftover scraps stolen from the kitchen this time. When Catherine returned with the meal, Ethan gestured for her to linger. "I'd love to learn more about you, if you don't mind. This place, is it your only job?" She found her cheeks warming. "No, I also work at a boutique in the mornings." His gaze flicked with interest. "2 jobs, that's quite a workload." She shrugged, self-conscious. "Rent isn't cheap and I have some debts." She forced a light laugh. "But enough about me." Before she could pivot the conversation, Ethan volunteered a soft confession. "My appetite's still poor. Lost someone close recently. This dog was theirs originally. I guess I'm trying to fulfill a promise, caring for her." He stroked the shepherd's muzzle. The dog let out a comforting sigh. Catherine's heart twinged at the grief in his tone. "I'm so sorry for your loss," she whispered. "I hope your friend is proud that you're keeping the dog safe." He nodded, swallowing. Silence stretched. Nearby, other diners shot curious glances. Sensing he didn't want an audience, Catherine bowed politely. "Take your time, sir. I'll be right here if you need anything else." Her mind reeled with the new insight. Ethan's heartbreak anchored in personal tragedy. She'd glimpsed a fraction of the sorrow behind his lonely eyes. As she retreated to service other tables, she realized a deeper empathy for him. This wealthy man, once presumed aloof or bored, was grieving. The dog, once presumed a minor inconvenience, was a living link to someone he loved. Suddenly, her leftover scrap from the first night took on new meaning, a kindness bridging lonely hearts. The first subtle shift in their dynamic laid the foundation for something greater. Each time she caught the dog's grateful wag, she felt a quiet sense that this was only the beginning. Her small act of compassion might ripple far beyond a single meal. Though Catherine tried to keep her shifts smooth and professional, an undercurrent of anticipation now colored her interactions with Ethan Rochester. In the days that followed his second visit, word quietly spread among the staff that a mysterious millionaire had taken a friendly interest in one of their waitresses. Whispers emerged in the break room, some supportive, others rife with envy or suspicion. But Catherine focused on her tasks, determined not to let rumors shape her budding rapport with him. Catherine's daytime job at the boutique brought fresh stress. One morning, her manager, Ms. Lewis, gathered the small staff to announce dire news. Sales had plummeted for months, overheads soared, and the store risked closure within weeks if they couldn't secure extra capital. Catherine listened with a sinking heart. This modest boutique was her main stable income, more consistent than uncertain restaurant tips. The reality that she might lose it threatened her already precarious finances. After the meeting, Miss Lewis confided in Catherine, tears brimming. "We might need a loan, but banks have turned us down. Unless a miracle investor appears, we'll shut." Catherine tried to comfort her, though she felt the same dread. She pictured her meager savings evaporating, rent overdue. She recalled the money Ethan had left as a tip, that fleeting fix, still hidden in her apartment. It wasn't enough to save an entire business, but it might buy time. Yet the notion of giving or loaning that sum to the boutique felt presumptuous. Anxiety curled in her chest. Meanwhile, at La Belle Cuisine, Catherine navigated a delicate balance with Antoine, who eyed her interactions with Ethan carefully. Though he welcomed the wealthy patron's repeat visits and generous checks, he seemed wary of Catherine getting too personal. More than once, he cautioned her to maintain professional distance, reminding her that fraternizing with customers could harm the restaurant's image. Catherine insisted nothing inappropriate was happening. She served Ethan politely, joked lightly about the dog's preferences, and occasionally lingered when Ethan invited casual conversation. But the line between helpful waitress and personal confidant blurred each night Ethan appeared. His dog, greeting her with a tail wag, only underscored the unusual closeness forming. Antoine's thin-lipped warnings increased after overhearing staff gossip about Catherine courting the millionaire. The German shepherd's presence continued to tug at Catherine's heart. She'd learned the dog's name was Astra. Its partially blind eyes lit up whenever Catherine arrived at the table, with a gentle pat or a special treat. Ethan confided that caring for Astra was a promise he'd made to a late relative, likely a dear friend or family member, though he avoided deeper detail. It explained the sadness in his gaze, along with the dog's devotion. Catherine noticed how each night he spent at the restaurant, Astra perched loyally by his side, grounding him through moments of unspoken grief. When Catherine asked about Astra's medical condition, Ethan admitted it was degenerative, and the specialized harness he used had cost a small fortune. "But she's worth every penny," he'd say softly, stroking Astra's fur. Catherine felt a pang each time she saw his tender care. She recognized in him a man burdened by regrets and loneliness, who found solace in the dog's unwavering presence and, perhaps, a small spark of comfort in her quiet empathy. Between sips of soup or small bites of fish, Ethan began inquiring about Catherine's world, her studies, family, or financial burdens. At first, she demurred, not wanting to overshare, but his gentle prodding, combined with his genuine concern, coaxed small admissions. She lived alone, juggling 2 jobs, worried about rent. She admitted her dream was to someday manage a small business of her own, perhaps a cafe or a little floral shop, if she ever saved enough. Ethan listened intently, occasionally nodding. His eyes betrayed glimpses of thoughtful compassion. The manager, Antoine, sometimes loomed at a distance. Catherine tried to keep conversations strictly service-oriented, yet the line blurred as Ethan's questions grew more personal. While she found comfort in opening up, she also sensed the risk. Staff gossip soared, especially as Ethan's visits turned more frequent, each time slipping Catherine a tip larger than the previous. She hid most of the funds away, uncertain if she should accept them, yet refusing publicly might insult him. She told herself it was purely gratitude for Astra's care, not a personal overture, but her heart fluttered each time he left an envelope behind. Her co-workers, especially a waiter named Jules, weren't blind to the pattern of Ethan requesting Catherine's section, handing her envelopes, or engaging in hushed conversation. Jules teased openly, "When's the wedding, Cat?" while Maria tried warning that rumors might cost Catherine her job. One evening, Catherine overheard a snippet from the kitchen staff that Antoine was monitoring her dealings with Ethan. The idea unsettled her. She adored the restaurant's clientele, but fear of job loss if management perceived impropriety haunted her. Meanwhile, the impetus to rescue her failing boutique job overshadowed everything else. Each new day, the swirl of burdens, imminent closure of the boutique, mounting gossip at La Belle Cuisine, confusion about Ethan's genuine intentions drove Catherine's anxiety skyward. Yet each time Ethan arrived with Astra, that warmth in his eyes and the dog's gentle greeting softened her. She clung to the ephemeral sense that beyond wealth and sorrow, Ethan might be a lifeline. Perhaps he could invest in the boutique or at least guide her. But how to ask without crossing professional lines? In the hush of late-night cleanup, Catherine once confided in the dog, half laughing at her own desperation. "I'm not after your master's money," she whispered, stroking Astra's ears. "I just want to stand on my own feet, but your master, I'm worried he's lonely too." The dog licked her hand, as though understanding. She realized that if she wanted a deeper connection or a genuine lifeline, honesty would be key. But confronting a millionaire about personal struggles, that leapt beyond standard waitress-customer relations. As Catherine turned off the restaurant's last lights, the new array of challenges crystallized. An employer's suspicious gaze, a boutique teetering on bankruptcy, co-workers' gossip, and an emotionally bruised millionaire dog owner forging a gentle bond with her. With each quiet exchange, her heart leaned toward forging trust, even as rational caution told her to keep distance. The stage was set for a deeper confrontation. Would she open up about her burdens, risking his pity or crossing professional lines? Or would she let her boutique fail and remain a quiet waitress forever, denying the possibility that a single act of compassion might yield a hope she never dared dream of? The next step would test the sincerity of Ethan's repeated generosity and Catherine's willingness to accept help where it was genuinely offered. Catherine's weeks turned into a precarious dance, juggling the looming financial crisis at the boutique and Antoine's wary scrutiny at La Belle Cuisine. Each time Ethan Rochester arrived with his disabled dog, Catherine found herself in a swirl of gratitude and guilt. His visits became a quiet highlight of her shift, the dog's mild tail wag whenever she approached, Ethan's subtle questions about her day. Yet rumors and unspoken tensions grew. By day, Catherine's boutique manager, Ms. Lewis, grew more frantic. Sales reports proved dismal. One afternoon, they received final notice from the property owner: pay back rent or prepare to vacate by month's end. Ms. Lewis, near tears, confided, "I'd do anything to keep these doors open, but without an investor, we're doomed." Catherine's heart constricted. She recalled the nights she'd glimpsed real sorrow in Ethan's eyes. His dog nestled at his feet. He had the means to help, presumably, but was it right to even ask? Approaching him felt like crossing a line, turning their fragile bond into a financial plea. Still, the dream of preserving her job and the store's small staff weighed heavily. Each day she saw the staff's worried faces, from the cashier to the part-timer who needed every penny. She bit her lip, wondering if she should mention her predicament to Ethan. He'd said, "If you ever need assistance, financial or otherwise, call me," handing her his card. But was that a fleeting courtesy or genuine readiness to invest? Nights at the restaurant, tension simmered with gossip. Some co-workers teased Catherine about snagging a millionaire boyfriend. Others disapproved or worried she might cross a moral line, especially in a place that prided itself on polished professionalism. Antoine, the manager, politely reminded Catherine not to linger at Ethan's table beyond standard courtesy. Yet Ethan's quiet magnetism and the dog's gentle presence drew her in. She'd find herself answering the dog's inquisitive whines, offering tiny kindnesses, or chatting with Ethan about trivial matters: the city's weather, a new exhibit at the art museum, random tidbits about the dog's preferences. One evening, after the dinner rush, Ethan asked Catherine if she had any breaks soon. Hearing him, the manager shot her a meaningful glare, but Catherine, heart pounding, carefully told Ethan she could spare a moment near the hostess stand. They talked softly while the dog lay content at his feet. He asked again about her day-to-day life, curiosity lacing his tone. Catherine hesitated but gave a modest glimpse. "It's tough balancing two jobs, and the boutique's near closing. I'm not sure what I'll do if it shuts." Her voice quivered, the frustration of her uncertain future leaking through. Ethan's brow furrowed sympathetically. Before he could respond, Antoine interrupted with an abrupt question about Mr. Rochester's dessert preferences, forcibly redirecting the conversation. The moment died, leaving Catherine flustered and Ethan pensive. On another occasion, Catherine noticed Ethan seemed more withdrawn than usual, dark circles under his eyes, a heaviness to his movements. He picked at his meal, barely eating. The dog, sensing his mood, licked his hand gently. Catherine asked if everything was okay. Ethan exhaled, half laughing. "Just a wave of memory. This dog, Astra, used to accompany my late sister on trips like these. Now it's just me." He paused, swallowing. "I keep thinking, if she saw how little appetite I have for life's pleasures, she'd be upset. I come here trying to spark that old joy, but..." A pang of empathy gripped Catherine. She recalled the story of losing a sibling from idle rumors among staff. The dog was a final link to that sibling. Understanding dawned. His repeated visits, meager orders, and invitation to share conversation were attempts to reawaken a sense of connection. Her own swirling concerns about finances suddenly felt both dwarfed and validated. Each needed solace in their separate struggles. Yet how to confide in each other without breaching the fragile line between waitress and patron? Ironically, the dog served as a bridge. Each night, Catherine would discreetly place a small treat or guiding hand near the dog, who responded with quiet trust. The staff accepted it as her signature kindness, even as Antoine's displeased stares indicated he considered it borderline unprofessional. Catherine stood firm. This was a service dog with partial blindness. Any bit of gentle direction or treat was no harm. If Ethan appreciated it, that was a bonus. Over time, the dog's wag upon seeing her grew, and the table visits extended from fleeting to a near routine. Yet each gentle moment also magnified Catherine's internal conflict, her dire need for financial rescue, Ethan's potential willingness to help, and the moral quandary of mixing personal desperation with a fragile new friendship. She feared tarnishing his confidence or cheapening the dog's comfort if she blurted out, "I need money, can you invest in our boutique?" The swirling tension pressed on her daily. One night, after a rushed shift ended, Catherine found another envelope on the corner table. Ethan had already departed with Astra. Inside lay a note. "Would you join me for coffee tomorrow? I'd like to talk, if you're comfortable." Beneath it was enough cash to dwarf any typical tip again. Her breath caught. The direct invitation for an off-site meeting soared beyond the usual lines. She felt both curiosity and fear. Did he want to help her, or was this a personal overture? The staff's gossiping voices rang in her ears, cautioning about illusions or impropriety. Yet something told her Ethan's intentions were sincere, possibly philanthropic. The dog's presence indicated a man who valued empathy and loyalty above shallow flirtations. Heart pounding, she pocketed the note, mind whirling with, "Should I go? Will the manager disapprove if he finds out?" Sleep remained elusive that night, fresh dilemmas churning. If she accepted coffee, she risked further rumor or heartbreak if it was just pity. If she declined, she might lose the only chance to protect her future or reveal her own battered dreams. Thus, the subplots converged. A crumbling boutique needing a miracle, a private investor who might be the key, and a courageous waitress uncertain if crossing the line from server to confidant was wise. All overshadowed by a gentle dog bridging lonely hearts. The next step, whether Catherine accepted Ethan's invitation, loomed as a pivotal choice, forging the final path toward a life-changing outcome or the heartbreak of unspoken hopes. Night settled over the city in a haze of soft streetlights and distant traffic sounds. Catherine sat by her tiny kitchen table, rereading Ethan's note with the faint coffee invitation scrawled beneath his cursive signature. In her other hand, she held the thick envelope of cash, far surpassing standard tips she'd ever known. The swirl of possibility knotted her stomach. This might be her best chance to save the boutique, or at least find some lifeline of investment. But was it right to mix personal struggles with a wealthy patron's kindness? She turned the envelope over, recalling how each new slip of money from Ethan had become more substantial, as if each day her small acts of kindness toward his disabled dog increased his gratitude. She worried about how it might appear to her co-workers, or even to Ethan himself, as though she was stringing him along for financial gain. That notion clashed with her genuine warmth for the dog and a quiet empathy for Ethan's loneliness. Sighing, she glanced at the clock. It read 10:45 p.m. Her shift ended late, and the next day promised more running around, morning at the boutique, evening at the restaurant. She tapped Ethan's business card, which she still kept in her nightstand drawer alongside these tips. A swirl of conflicting urges pressed her to call him, to decline gracefully, to attend that coffee meeting, but keep conversation purely friendly. She realized that none of her typical moves applied here. This was uncharted territory. Before bed, Catherine checked her phone messages, one from Miss Lewis at the boutique confirmed the landlord's final notice. They had just 2 weeks to pay the overdue rent, or eviction would be locked in. Miss Lewis sounded desperate, hinting they might try an online fundraiser or small business loan again. Catherine's heart sank. Nothing guaranteed success, and time ticked faster every day. As she set her phone aside, tears pricked her eyes. Memories flooded of how she'd grown from a shy teen volunteering at the boutique to a devoted part-timer who found comfort in its supportive environment. She pictured Miss Lewis's worried face, the small staff's unity. Could she truly let it slip away if there existed a chance to ask Ethan for help? The next evening at La Belle Cuisine, Antoine wasted no time pulling Catherine aside after noticing her quiet mood. "Catherine," he hissed softly, "the staff keep whispering about your special arrangement with Mr. Rochester. You're not, by chance, planning a date with him, are you?" His tone reeked of paternalistic concern. Catherine flushed. "He invited me for coffee, but it's not a date, sir. He just wants to talk about, well, I'm not sure." She braced, expecting a scolding. Antoine's expression darkened. "Be cautious. We don't want scandal. He's a wealthy patron, yes, but that doesn't mean you can blur lines, especially if money is changing hands. Our reputation stands on professionalism." She nodded mutely, cheeks burning. She recognized Antoine's partial truth. She did worry how it might look, a waitress receiving large sums from a millionaire. But the dog's presence, Ethan's quiet grief, the entire context defied superficial conclusions. Still, she politely promised Antoine to keep it discreet, her mind set on attending the coffee meeting anyway. Surprisingly, Ethan came in that same evening with the dog. He ordered nothing but a simple tea, saying his appetite was shot again. The dog, though, wagged vigorously upon seeing Catherine as if it recognized her footsteps. She knelt by its side, giving it a small pat, ignoring stares from passing colleagues. She half whispered, "I got your note about coffee." Ethan's eyes lit up with mild relief. "I hoped you would. I'd like to talk in a calmer setting." She swallowed, summoning a warm smile. "I'm off tomorrow morning, if that works." He nodded, offering a gentle grin. "Perfect. I'll send a car if that's all right. Or we can meet downtown, whichever you prefer." The dog exhaled a contented sigh, like it sensed a resolution forming. Catherine felt her chest flutter, both from excitement and from the fear of forging this connection. She simply whispered, "Meeting downtown is fine. There's a coffee shop near the boutique." Ethan agreed, and they parted with a quiet, mutual understanding. As soon as Ethan left, a hush fell among the staff. A co-worker, Jules, tossed Catherine a look, raising eyebrows. Another co-worker, arms folded, teased, "Did the millionaire just ask you out, or am I imagining?" Catherine flushed, retorting in a hushed tone that it was only coffee to discuss some personal matter. Yet the staff clearly smelled a budding relationship or a potential Cinderella story. It stoked envy in a few, curiosity in others. Catherine forced a polite shrug, returning to her tasks. In the break room, Maria cornered her. "Are you sure about this, Cat? What if he's offering money for... do you trust him?" Catherine's chest squeezed. "He's never been improper or pushy. He's grieving, and I just think he needs a friend. And yes, the money complicates things." But he's never demanded anything from me. Maria nodded, exhaling. Just guard your heart, okay? All through the shift's end, Catherine's mind buzzed. She had the day's tips in hand, plus that overshadowing envelope from previous nights. Antoine's watchful gaze reminded her not to spin illusions. Yet the dog's memory of affectionate tail wags and Ethan's subdued warmth pressed her forward. She resolved to see for herself if this coffee meeting might yield a genuine solution for her boutique's crisis, or simply deeper understanding of his sorrow. That night, alone in her modest apartment, she tried to craft a mental script. If he truly offered help, how to frame it without feeling like a beggar. If he only wanted emotional conversation, how to reciprocate without stepping out of line. She recalled the dog's gentle muzzle lifting in quiet acceptance each time she approached, linking them in a bond that transcended mere pity or courtesy. In the hush of midnight, an intangible tension soared. Tomorrow's coffee invite stood as a pivotal turning point. Catherine recognized in her gut that a yes might lead to a transformation of her life's path, be it the boutique's salvation or a new personal bond with a lonely millionaire. Yet a no would preserve caution, preventing rumors of gold digging. The culminating swirl of these subplots, her job at the boutique, the manager's warnings, staff jealousy, and Ethan's quiet sincerity, converged into a single moral and emotional question. As the clock ticked, she realized she couldn't remain in stasis. The stage was set for the next day's meeting to decide if compassion, once directed at a disabled dog, could blossom into a life-changing alliance or a heartbreak of unmet expectations. Morning arrived with a trembling mix of hope and dread for Catherine. She'd barely slept, mind circling around her planned coffee meeting with Ethan Rochester. By the time she'd thrown on her modest jacket, her nerves were stretched taut. Her phone buzzed. A quick text from Ms. Lewis at the boutique, reminding her of the rent deadline in just over a week. The weight of that countdown flared in her chest, intensifying her resolve to at least mention her predicament to Ethan, if the moment felt right. They'd agreed to meet at a small, cozy cafe near the boutique. Catherine arrived first, seated at a back table surrounded by warm lamps and the aroma of fresh pastries. Her foot tapped anxiously under the table. She pictured Ethan stepping inside, dog in tow. But was that feasible in a regular cafe? Maybe he'd leave the dog in a specialized van or with an assistant. She realized she didn't know how he typically traveled. Then she scolded herself for fussing. The dog had a harness for partial blindness, so it was likely a service animal allowed in any public space. Sure enough, her speculations ended when the cafe door chimed and Ethan entered, dog at his side. The cafe was quiet mid-morning, a few laptop-using patrons glancing up curiously. Catherine rose, offering a shy wave. Her stomach flipped, seeing the dog's tail swish the moment it spotted her. "Hope I'm not late," Ethan said softly, guiding the dog carefully around a few chairs. He wore a subtle but well-tailored coat, hair slightly tousled, as if he too had tossed sleeplessly. Catherine forced a small laugh. "No, I was early." She gestured to the seat across from hers, leaving space for the dog. They exchanged a halting greeting, ordering coffee. At first, conversation hovered on safe topics: the cafe's rustic decor, the city's unseasonably cool weather. Catherine commented on how well the dog navigated new spaces, even partially blind. Ethan explained in subdued tones that he'd invested in a specialized harness with sensors that gently vibrated if obstacles were near, a device a friend had recommended for advanced therapy animals. The dog sat content at his feet, occasionally tilting its head as though listening. Catherine marveled at the thought put into the dog's well-being, though she also glimpsed Ethan's underlying sadness. She recalled he'd mentioned the dog once belonged to a late sister or close loved one. A pang of empathy returned, fueling a desire to help him in any small way. Meanwhile, the knowledge that her own financial meltdown was nigh pressed her from another angle. Mid-conversation, Ethan cleared his throat, voice dipping. "Catherine, I asked you here because I sense you're carrying burdens. Last night, you mentioned your other job might be closing soon." He paused, gauging her reaction. She froze, swirling her coffee cup. Would it be wise to open up? Sensing sincerity in his gaze, she sighed. "Yes, The boutique is near bankruptcy. If it goes under, I lose half my income. I'm not sure how I'll manage." Her voice caught. "I'm sorry to dump this on you. We barely know each other." He shook his head gently. "You showed me kindness, never once asking for anything. At the restaurant, you feed my dog scraps, treat me like a friend, not a wallet with legs." A faint smile touched his lips. "I realize how unusual this is, but if I can help, I want to. I owe it to the memory of the person who left me this dog. She believed in generosity where it's needed most." He reached down, giving the dog a gentle pat. Catherine blinked back tears. "Thank you, but it's a lot. The store's rent, wages, everything." She fished out her phone, opening a screenshot Ms. Lewis had sent. The breakdown of overdue rent. "This is the shortfall, a few thousand, not something I can repay easily." She let out a pained laugh. "I shouldn't even be telling you this. It's so forward." Ethan studied the numbers gravely, sipping his coffee. The dog, muzzle on his leg, occasionally flicked its ears at Catherine's voice. After a moment, he exhaled. "Catherine, I'm in a position to help. It's not even a fraction of what I spend on, well, on many lesser things. If you're comfortable, I could arrange a small business loan or direct support. You wouldn't owe me personally. We can set it up properly so your boutique manager has a chance to repay in due course." Hearing this direct offer, Catherine's heart soared with relief, yet caution reared. "That's unbelievably kind. But I'd need Mrs. Lewis's agreement, and I don't want you to think I'm using you," she murmured, cheeks burning. She forced herself to meet his gaze. "We only just met. This is huge." Ethan's gaze softened. "I'm aware. But from my vantage, the money sits idle in accounts while small businesses like yours vanish daily. My sister was a champion of local shops. She used to drag me to every boutique in the city, saying we had to support real people, not just corporate chains." A wistful note cracked his voice. "After losing her, I lost direction, but if I can honor that spirit, maybe it helps me heal." Emotions swelled in Catherine's throat. The dog let out a quiet whine, as though sensing the heartfelt tension. She realized how personal this was for him, not just a philanthropic whim. Nodding, she whispered, "You'd do that. For us, on a structured basis, so we're not just mooching?" He chuckled, a gentle relief crossing his face. "Of course, a formal arrangement with contractual terms. I can have my finance people draft something. Your manager would sign, and you wouldn't owe me personally. Just the standard interest rate or a small equity stake. We can figure details." Catherine felt near tears, part joy, part anxiety. Taking a step toward salvation for the boutique also meant deeper entanglement with Ethan's personal circle. The staff gossip flitted through her mind. "Will they see me as a gold digger?" She tried voicing a semblance of concern. "Thank you, truly, but I must talk with Ms. Lewis. We can't just accept a random big investor without transparency, and I need to ensure it won't cause trouble at the restaurant." Ethan nodded thoughtfully, reading between the lines. "I sense your manager's suspicious of our connection. If it helps, I can approach him politely. Assure him there's nothing unethical about a genuine business deal, or we keep it quiet if you prefer. I only want what's best for you both, actually." He glanced at the dog. "And maybe we can find some middle ground that keeps tongues from wagging." Catherine offered a trembling smile, placing her hand lightly on the dog's harness. "Thank you again. You're saving more than you know." Her heart hammered, adrenaline spiking as a new reality formed, a potential partnership that might rescue her livelihood. Yet bigger hurdles waited. How Ms. Lewis might react, how Antoine might retaliate if he saw this as overstepping, and whether accepting Ethan's help would shift their relationship. The swirl of subplots, personal, professional, emotional, soared, forging a path that might rewrite her entire future if she found the courage to walk it. As the fragrance of fresh coffee lingered in the small cafe, Catherine's heart thumped at a rapid pace. Ethan's offer hung in the air, potent and life-altering. An investment or structured support for the boutique. The idea both thrilled and terrified her. Could she trust that this arrangement wouldn't complicate their fragile dynamic? That Mrs. Lewis would embrace outside help from a mysterious investor? That gossip at La Belle Cuisine wouldn't explode? After the wave of initial gratitude passed, silence settled between them. The German Shepherd rested its muzzle on Ethan's knee, as if sensing its owner's subtle tension. Catherine took a shaky sip of her latte, forcing her mind to calm. "If we do this," she said softly, "I need to be sure my boss at the boutique agrees. She's proud, and we'd prefer a formal contract, no hidden motives." Ethan nodded, eyes reflecting calm understanding. "Of course, I can have my attorneys draw something official. It can be done quietly. I respect your boundaries. If you or Miss Lewis decide it's not feasible, that's okay too." The sincerity in his tone reminded Catherine of the first night she'd fed his dog Scraps. His gratitude came from a place of genuine empathy, not a desire to manipulate. Behind them, a barista fiddled with the espresso machine, occasionally glancing over with mild curiosity. The cafe remained mostly empty this late morning, granting Catherine and Ethan a semblance of privacy. The dog let out a low sigh, tail giving a slow wag every time Catherine reached down to pet it. Martin, the barista, approached to clear empty cups from a neighboring table, shooting Catherine a polite smile. She returned it absently, mind swirling. Was she truly stepping beyond a waitress-patron relationship? She recalled Antoine's warnings and her co-workers' hints about rich suitors. The last thing she wanted was to confirm their cynicism. Yet Ethan's eyes, soft but earnest, radiated no illusions of romance. His approach felt fatherly or brotherly, shaped by grief and an inherited sense of generosity. Catherine tried to quell the voice that asked if something more could bloom between them. "Ethan," she began, voice trembling, "I worry about rumors. My manager at the restaurant is quite strict. He's suspicious already." She grimaced, recalling Antoine's stern gaze. "He might see this as a conflict of interest." A faint shadow crossed Ethan's expression. "I understand. Perhaps I can schedule a meeting with your manager, reassure him there's no impropriety, but if you'd rather keep it quiet, I won't impose." The dog stirred, nudging Ethan's hand as though encouraging caution. Catherine admired how sensitive the dog seemed to every nuanced shift in its owner's mood. At that moment, the shepherd gave a soft whine and shifted uneasily. Ethan frowned, lowering his hand to feel along its harness. "She's picking up my tension," he said wryly. "I must be broadcasting my worries." Leaning forward, he stroked the dog's fur, eyes closed momentarily, as though recentering himself. Catherine felt a stab of empathy. She realized that behind his wealth lay a quiet man, grappling with both personal grief and the burden of wanting to help, yet fearing rejection or complication. In a gentle tone, she offered, "Let's do this step by step. I'll talk to Mrs. Lewis today. If she's open, we can set a formal meeting. You can bring your attorneys, finalize a structure that we're comfortable with. We repay you as the store recovers, or you gain small equity, whatever you propose. That way, it's purely business, no rumor fuel." Her voice firmed with each sentence. Ethan's shoulders relaxed, relief flickering. "That sounds perfect. Thank you for trusting me enough to consider it." A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "And I do want it purely professional. This is about preserving something you cherish and fulfilling a philanthropic vow I made to someone dear. Nothing more." The dog let out a subdued wag, as if seconding that statement. Despite Ethan's disclaimers, a fleeting spark in Catherine's chest whispered that perhaps they'd become something akin to friends. She saw how his reluctant half-smiles surfaced whenever they discussed animals or her small ambitions. She suspected he might glean comfort in hearing about the boutique's local flair, reminiscent of how his late sibling championed small businesses. Meanwhile, the dog's open affection warmed her lonely nights. While romance hadn't explicitly come up, the synergy between them felt more personal than a mere investor-lendee arrangement. Catherine recognized it, but chose to push that thought aside for now. Still, an unspoken tension glimmered. Could they manage a close working relationship without stoking gossip or heartbreak? The city brimmed with cynics who'd see a broke waitress hooking a rich philanthropist. Catherine dreaded the suspicion that might swirl at La Belle Cuisine once news broke. She braced to face it, determined that preserving the boutique overshadowed petty rumor. As the dog settled with a contented sigh, Catherine recalled the intangible synergy that first night, her leftover scraps bridging lonely hearts. This dog, though partially blind, saw more deeply into people's hearts than most humans. In that peaceful cafe, a hush enveloped them, Ethan's sadness, Catherine's desperation, and the dog's calm trust blending into a strange harmony. Perhaps noticing the emotional hush, Ethan quietly changed the subject to lighter details, asking about Ms. Lewis's boutique style, the lines of clothing they carried, the neighborhood's foot traffic. Catherine found herself explaining the store's community ties, a small haven for local artisans to display goods. Ethan nodded, absorbing details with a businessman's keen interest. She watched a spark alight in his eyes, as though the concept resonated with the philanthropic path he wanted to walk. Minutes stretched, until Catherine realized her next shift at the boutique beckoned. She rose, Ethan following suit, dog at his side. Outside the window, the day's sunshine cast gentle warmth on the sidewalk. They parted with a subtle handshake, the dog leaning in for a final pat from Catherine. "I'll call you soon," she promised. "After I talk with Ms. Lewis." Ethan gave a small nod, expression grateful yet measured. "Thank you. We'll make something good out of this, I believe." As she stepped onto the street, heart fluttering, she resolved to put all her efforts into forging a clean path. She'd approach Ms. Lewis with honesty, see if they welcomed a private investor. If yes, the swirl of drama at the restaurant might intensify, but at least her boutique job could be saved. Another hush of worry pressed. Could Antoine sabotage it out of pride, or co-workers sow seeds of distrust? The subplots thickened. Catherine felt the final chapters approaching. She had the impetus to transform her life, thanks to a lonely millionaire and his faithful, disabled dog bridging a chasm of class and heartbreak. Yet new challenges loomed, forging a business deal without scandal, protecting the dog's and Ethan's privacy, and sustaining her dignity among suspicious eyes. The next step, introducing Ethan's proposal to Ms. Lewis, would decide if Catherine stepped fully into the future, offered by her small act of compassion, or retreated, letting fear anchor her to the quiet shadows she'd always known. The next day, Catherine summoned every ounce of courage and told Mrs. Lewis about Ethan's possible offer. They stood in the deserted back room of the boutique, overhead lights buzzing softly. The shop had closed early again, no customers, no sales, a grim reflection of the store's downward spiral. Ms. Lewis, rifling through near-empty registers, turned with an expression of weary defeat that brightened faintly at the mention of a potential investor. Catherine carefully explained how she'd formed a tenuous friendship with a wealthy restaurant patron who also happened to be interested in saving small businesses. She emphasized that he'd lost someone close who cared about local shops. Her boss's eyes widened, a breath hitching in her throat. "You're serious? He'd consider investing here?" Catherine nodded, still uncertain. "He said it might be a formal arrangement, no handouts, a loan or small equity stake. He's sincere, but I can't promise anything. We only discussed." A damp chill clung to the air as Catherine hurried along the sidewalk after closing time at the boutique. The day's earlier conversation with Ms. Lewis still rang in her ears, excitement laced with caution. Ms. Lewis had been stunned by the prospect of a private investor stepping in, grateful yet hesitant. What if the arrangement was more personal than business? Catherine didn't have all the answers, but Ethan's sincerity and the dog's gentle presence convinced her that his intentions were honest. Yet bringing those convictions to the manager at La Belle Cuisine was another matter. Arriving at La Belle Cuisine for her evening shift, Catherine felt a new tension in the staff lounge. Rumors about her meeting with Ethan outside work had circulated. A few co-workers eyed her with curiosity or envy. The final straw came when Antoine, the manager, summoned her before opening hours. He waited in his office, arms folded. Antoine's gaze was stern. "Catherine, I've heard whispers that you met Mr. Rochester for coffee and that he's proposing some financial arrangement for you." She swallowed hard, aware that staff gossip had likely distorted the facts. "He offered to invest in the boutique where I work mornings. It's a formal loan, sir, not a personal gift." Antoine tapped his desk impatiently. "Regardless, our restaurant's policy frowns on employees fraternizing with patrons to such an extent. We've also had complaints that you spend extra time at his table, giving special treatment." I'm concerned about the restaurant's reputation if this is seen as a personal entanglement. Catherine's stomach twisted. Sir, I only gave him the same attention I'd give any customer. Plus, he's traveling with a disabled dog, which needs small accommodations. I promise I haven't neglected other tables or the restaurant standards. She pressed her trembling hands to her sides, trying to keep her composure. And this investment talk is about my other job, not la belle cuisine. Antoine hesitated, seeming caught between business pragmatism, Ethan was a valuable patron, and moral guardianship, worried Catherine might entangle the restaurant in scandal. At last, he sighed. I can't forbid you from seeing him outside these walls, but if staff rumors escalate, or if Mr. Rochester's visits stir controversy, I'll reassign you, or worse. Please keep everything strictly professional here. Catherine nodded shakily, relief tempered by the undercurrent of threat. She left his office with her heart pounding, suspecting that if any further drama emerged, she might lose her place at La Belle Cuisine. Before her next morning shift at the boutique, Catherine had told Mrs. Lewis about Ethan's willingness to invest. Ms. Lewis had listened with wide eyes, relief shining at the potential lifeline. If he's serious, we could sign a loan or partial equity deal, pay back over time. Tears of gratitude welled in her eyes. Catherine felt a rush of hope, believing she might truly save her beloved workplace. Yet Miss Lewis expressed concern. Are you sure it's purely business? I don't want you compromised. He's wealthy, powerful. Sometimes that leads to tricky territory. Catherine had insisted Ethan offered a professional arrangement, not personal entanglements. But deep inside, she felt a swirl of conflicting emotions. Was there a quiet emotional bond forming between them, beyond philanthropic gestures? She tried not to dwell on it. That evening, Ethan returned for dinner, dog in tow. As Catherine approached, she braced for stares from co-workers. Sure enough, some stealthily watched from across the dining room, curiosity burning. Undeterred, Catherine mustered a gentle smile. Good evening, sir. It's nice to see you again. The dog's tail thumped, muzzle nudging Catherine's leg in greeting. Ethan reciprocated with a polite nod, though something about his posture suggested a new tension. He glanced around, noticing the staff's discreet stares. Your manager seemed uneasy when I arrived. Is everything all right? Catherine forced a bright, professional tone. He just wants to ensure all customers receive equal attention. Nothing to worry about. She lowered her voice. I do want to talk after your meal about the boutique, if you're still willing. His expression warmed. Of course, let's keep it brief, for your manager's sake. He ordered a single dish, yet again. The dog settled at his feet, calm as ever. Catherine felt fluttering excitement. Once the dinner rush ended, they might finalize the plan to help her boutique. Yet anxiety lingered. Any misstep with Antoine could be her downfall. Halfway through the shift, Jules, one of Catherine's co-workers, corners her near the kitchen. So, you're practically dating the millionaire now? Look, Cat, we all need tips, but this is next level. His tone dripped envy and a hint of bitterness. Catherine bristled. It's not a date, Jules. He's just a kind patron. And his dog is partially blind. I'm giving them normal courtesy. Jules snorted. Normal courtesy doesn't land you thousands in tips or coffee meetings outside. People talk, you know. Catherine's cheeks burned. It's not your concern, she managed, stepping around him. But the confrontation stung. She worried about staff sabotage if rumors escalated. The knowledge that Ethan might soon become an investor at her other job only fueled co-worker speculation about a fairy tale sugar daddy. As the evening wound down, Catherine delivered Ethan's check along with a nervous smile. Would you like me to meet you outside, sir? Easier to talk away from prying eyes? He agreed, giving her a sympathetic look, aware she was under pressure. Once he paid, Catherine finished her shift rapidly, ignoring the sharp glances from co-workers. She slipped out the side door, heart pounding. Outside, the streetlights cast halos on the damp pavement. Ethan waited near his car, a sleek but not ostentatious vehicle. The dog gazed placidly from inside, harness undone. Catherine exhaled. I'm sorry about the tension inside. My manager's quite strict, and some staff resent. She trailed off, wincing. Ethan laid a gentle hand on her shoulder. quickly withdrawing as though mindful of boundaries. No need to apologize. I understand we're stepping out of normal lines, but about the boutique, I've spoken to my finance team. If Miss Lewis is amenable, we can sign an investment contract tomorrow. That saves your store from eviction, correct? Tears pooled in Catherine's eyes, gratitude nearly overwhelming her. Yes, that'd be incredible. She's ready to do anything necessary. She paused, voice trembling. But are you sure? I don't want you to regret investing in a small, struggling shop for personal reasons. His expression softened. I have no illusions about guaranteed profit. This is partly philanthropic. But I also believe in local businesses. Like I said, my sister championed them. If it helps you, it honors her. And if we succeed, wonderful. If not, well, I can bear the loss. The dog barked softly in the car, as though in agreement. Catherine sniffled, half laughing. I don't know how to thank you. She glanced at the diner's side window, aware of co-workers possibly peeking. Her career at La Belle Cuisine balanced on a knife's edge of rumor, yet saving the boutique overshadowed such concerns. Let's finalize the details tomorrow then, she whispered. Ethan nodded, relief and a hint of warmth in his eyes. Yes, tomorrow. We can meet at your boutique with Mrs. Lewis. He offered a faint smile. And, Catherine, if your manager or staff makes your job difficult, remember I can help in other ways too. She startled. Did that mean a job at Rochester Holdings, or simply moral support? Unclear, but the possibility hovered. Thus, as the dog dozed in the car's back seat, Catherine and Ethan parted with a quiet vow to transform her precarious future. The next day's meeting would finalize their arrangement, bridging heartbreak and hope with a signed contract.
Catherine's heart soared with cautious optimism, though well aware that each step forced her to a life entangled with a lonely and as well of co-workers. Her approach to these stories claims back a promising resolution or a last-minute. The following day, Catherine mustered her courage and confided in Mrs. Lewis about Ethan's offer.
They stood amid empty racks in the boutique's back room. The store closed early due to the dismal lack of customers. Ms. Lewis listened with wide eyes as Catherine detailed how a wealthy patron from the restaurant proposed providing a small business loan or investment. Initially, Ms. Lewis gaped, torn between astonishment and skepticism. Catherine left the boutique that afternoon, clinging to a small spark of hope, yet her heart felt bruised by the storm of opinions swirling around her. Ms. Lewis had been cautiously optimistic upon hearing that Catherine knew someone willing to invest, but she also warned Catherine to verify everything, formal contracts, interest rates, before trusting a wealthy stranger. It was a valid concern. No matter how genuine Ethan appeared, unscrupulous deals had trapped many small business owners. The specter of well-meaning illusions weighed on Catherine's mind as she made her way to La Belle Cuisine for her evening shift. Once again, she entered the restaurant, preparing for the dinner rush. Co-workers offered mixed reactions. Maria gave a supportive pat on Catherine's shoulder, encouraging her to hold on to that hope. Others whispered or teased, implying Catherine was landing a sugar daddy. She tried ignoring them, focusing on her tasks, refusing to stoke the rumor mill. Yet the tension with Antoine, the manager, remained. He watched her interactions with patrons like a hawk, especially if Ethan appeared again. Indeed, Antoine pulled Catherine aside before the shift began. I've heard rumor you might have financial dealings with Mr. Rochester, he said quietly, eyes scanning her face. She stiffened. He's only offering help for a crisis. Nothing shady. Antoine pressed his lips tight, uncertain. Just remember, any scandal reflecting on staff also reflects on us. I don't want this to become a fiasco. Understood. She forced a nod, cheeks burning. The unsubtle subtext. If the restaurant's reputation took a hit, she'd be the scapegoat. Sure enough, halfway through the dinner rush, Catherine spotted Ethan entering with his partially blind dog. A hush spread near the door. New patrons glimpsed the dog's harness, uncertain if animals were allowed, but the hostess politely escorted him to a quiet corner table, likely at Antoine's direction to keep him from the main spotlight. Catherine, busy carrying plates, felt her pulse quicken. She dreaded the moment she'd approach him, wondering if he'd mention the talk with Ms. Lewis, or if he had second thoughts. After finishing her current run of entrees, she headed to Ethan's table. The dog wagged softly, muzzle lifting to greet her. Ethan offered a gentle smile, overshadowed by a hint of tension. "I hope I'm not imposing," he said. "I know we spoke earlier about the investment. I've done some preliminary calls with my finance team, but I'd like to confirm details with your manager. Ms. Lewis, was it?" Catherine's spirits soared and sank at once. She was elated he'd taken genuine steps, but also feared Ms. Lewis might be hesitant about the arrangement. She whispered, "She's open to meeting you, but she wants everything in writing. I do too, obviously." His mild nod carried understanding. "Of course. We'll keep everything official." He paused, stroking the dog's fur. "And how about you? Are you holding up okay amid the rumors here?" She flushed, flicking a glance around. Some co-workers were indeed eyeing them. "It's complicated," she admitted, "but I'm fine. You and the dog, Astra, are always welcome in my section." Her voice held a quiet sincerity. Moments later, as Catherine discreetly offered a small water bowl for the dog, Antoine stormed over, face taut. "Catherine, a word. Now," he demanded, ignoring Ethan's presence. Blood drained from her face as she followed the manager to a side hallway. "There," he spun toward her, voice low but harsh. "I warned you about getting too personal. Now the entire staff's gossiping that you're in bed, metaphorically or otherwise, with a big money client. This is beyond the pale. I can't have my restaurant turned into a spectacle." Catherine's breath caught. "Sir, I only spoke with him about a personal matter. He's offering a business arrangement for my other job. There's no scandal." Antoine's glare deepened. "I don't care about the details. If you continue fraternizing beyond standard service protocol, I'll have to reconsider your position here. I can't lose other high-paying patrons who might suspect impropriety." Pain stabbed Catherine's chest. She'd never faced such direct hostility from her boss. Before she could form a protest, he dismissed her with a curt gesture. "Get back out there, do your job, and keep your distance." Shaken, Catherine returned to Ethan's table, forced to mask her turmoil. She mustered a forced smile, quietly taking his order, a simple salad for himself and a small portion of plain dog-friendly meat for Astra. But tears pricked her eyes. She realized the manager's threat overshadowed her immediate livelihood at La Belle Cuisine. She needed that income unless the boutique soared back to life. But if she complied and avoided Ethan, would she lose the only chance to save the boutique? Ethan, observant as ever, noticed her troubled expression. "Everything all right?" he asked softly. She hesitated, blinking back tears, then forced a nod. "Yes, sir, just the usual work, stress." The dog let out a low whine, nudging Catherine's leg. Gently, she knelt to pat its head, telling herself to remain calm. The plane of Ethan's gaze turned concerned. "If we need to meet about the business arrangement, perhaps we can do so outside of your workplace. I don't want to cause friction with your boss." She inhaled, relieved. "Yes, that might be best." Her voice wavered. "He's not comfortable with me spending extra time at your table." Ethan exhaled, understanding. "We'll be discreet. I promise, Catherine, I won't let this hamper your job, but let me help you with the boutique." She swallowed hard, gratitude stirring with anxiety. She only nodded, half smiling. "After my shift, perhaps we can talk in the parking lot." Briefly. A swirl of adrenaline coursed through her. She pictured the unstoppable wave of suspicion from co-workers, the manager's ultimatum, and Ms. Lewis's dire finances at the boutique. Everything converged toward one final choice: fully accept Ethan's help or step away to preserve her job at the restaurant. The dog's quiet presence, leaning trustingly into Catherine's hand, only reminded her of how this entire situation began. A single scrap of kindness that now threatened her entire livelihood, yet also promised a chance at salvation. As the dinner rush peaked, Catherine wove between tables, head pounding with tension. The dog's request for comfort, Ethan's unwavering sincerity, the manager's hostility, the boutique's looming closure. These subplots all soared, forging a single question. Was Catherine willing to risk her position, trusting that Ethan's investment and her own moral compass would stand firm against rumors and managerial scorn. By night's end, a final confrontation with Antoine seemed inevitable, setting the stage for the flight or fight moment that would catapult Catherine's life toward a poignant resolution. The boutique air hung heavy with silence, broken only by the soft click of a wall clock counting down the final hours before eviction. Catherine stood beside Miss Lewis, hands clenched tightly, heart pounding as they waited. The landlord had promised one final meeting. Either a check would be in hand by noon, or the locks would change. Mrs. Lewis looked pale, her voice hoarse from explaining the situation to loyal staff. If this doesn't work, it's over. Catherine swallowed the rising lump in her throat. She'd called Ethan the night before, relaying the urgency. He had responded with calm clarity, assuring her his legal team would handle the necessary documentation, that a formal proposal had been prepared, and he would arrive personally with everything in hand. She trusted him, but the stakes had never felt higher. At exactly 11:59 a.m., the boutique door chimed open. Ethan stepped inside, Astra at his side, both exuding quiet grace. He wore a tailored coat, simple slacks, and carried a leather folder under one arm. He nodded politely to Mrs. Lewis, then looked to Catherine, offering a reassuring smile. "Sorry for the dramatic timing," he said gently. "I thought we'd make an impression." The landlord, already lingering near the register, narrowed his eyes. "Are you the financier?" Ethan gave a small bow. "Ethan Rochester, Rochester Holdings." The name sent a ripple through the room. Ms. Lewis blinked in stunned recognition. Catherine hadn't dared tell her who exactly was coming. "We're here to keep this place open," Ethan added. He opened the folder and laid out the offer: a structured business loan with favorable terms, an option for equity, and an emergency fund to cover the late rent immediately. His lawyers had already drafted agreements. "We're not looking to take over," he explained, "only to invest in something valuable, people who care. Community." The landlord reviewed the check and contract with skepticism at first, until the numbers made his eyes widen. "Well," he grunted, "if this clears, you're good." Ms. Lewis whispered. "It will." Her hands trembled as she turned to Catherine. "You did this?" Catherine could barely speak. Her throat tightened, and tears pooled in her eyes. She nodded slowly, whispering, "We did. Him and me." After the landlord left with the check, Ms. Lewis pulled Catherine into a tearful hug. "I don't know how to thank you. You saved this shop, all of us." Catherine shook her head. "It was a promise I made to myself. I wasn't going to let us vanish." Across the room, Ethan watched quietly. Astra, tail wagging faintly, stepped toward Catherine. She crouched, stroking the dog's fur. "You helped too," she murmured. But before she could relax, the boutique door swung open again. Antoine. He looked out of place in the shop, jaw tight. "I heard something interesting," he said coldly. "That our best waitress was negotiating business deals with a customer behind my back." His gaze snapped to Ethan. "And that said customer might be trying to buy more than a meal." The air chilled. Catherine straightened slowly, cheeks flushing with both anger and fear. "That's not fair," she said, voice steady. "Nothing unethical happened. Ethan made a business investment to help this place survive." Antoine stepped closer. "And what happens at the restaurant now? The staff are talking." "You've crossed a line, Catherine." Ethan, ever calm, took a step forward. "If I may," he said. "Ms. Catherine has done nothing but show integrity and compassion, both to my dog and to me. If anyone has a problem with that, I suggest they reevaluate their policies on humanity." Antoine's mouth tightened. He clearly wanted to protest, but the weight of Ethan's words and his reputation pressed too heavily. After a tense silence, he turned on his heel and left without another word. Catherine let out a shaky breath, heart hammering. "Well, I guess I'm fired." Ethan looked at her and smiled gently. "Then maybe it's time you stop serving tables and start running your own place." Mrs. Lewis, still overwhelmed, whispered, "We could promote you, make you co-manager, or even co-owner once we stabilize." Catherine blinked. "Really?" Ethan nodded toward her. "You've proven yourself capable of saving a sinking ship. That's more valuable than anything on a resume. A laugh escaped her lips, half in joy, half in disbelief. This started with a piece of meat for a dog. Ethan smiled, crouching to scratch Astra behind the ears. That small kindness showed more heart than most boardrooms I've sat in. Catherine knelt beside the dog, eyes shining. "Thank you," she whispered to Astra. "You brought him to me." The dog pressed its nose to her cheek, a quiet blessing. Later, the three of them, Ethan, Catherine, and Astra, stood outside the boutique. The clouds parted, sunlight spilling onto the pavement. Catherine turned to Ethan. "Why me?" she asked quietly. "You could have helped anyone." He looked down, then up again, eyes soft. "Because you didn't see money when you looked at me. You saw a man and his dog. You gave without expecting. That's rare." She reached for his hand, unsure of what it meant, only that it felt right. He took it. As Astra padded forward, tail swishing, Catherine smiled at the life ahead. No longer a waitress fading into the background, but a woman who, through a single act of kindness, changed everything. The boutique remained quiet, the scent of candles from the display table gently wafting through the air. Just 2 weeks ago, Catherine had stood in this very spot, wondering if she'd soon be handing in her keys and walking away from her second job forever. Now sunlight streamed through the window onto newly stocked shelves, a fresh sign proudly taped to the door. Under new partnership, reimagining local elegance. Ethan Rochester had followed through on everything he promised, and more. With his legal team's help, a formal agreement had been drawn up between his foundation and the boutique, a structured investment, not a donation, with clear expectations and mutual benefit. Ms. Lewis, at first shocked, quickly turned hopeful. "It's more than money," she'd whispered to Catherine. "It's a lifeline. And it happened because of you." Catherine never stopped working. In fact, she worked harder. Though Ethan offered to relieve her from waitressing entirely, she declined at first, choosing instead to finish out her weeks respectfully at La Belle Cuisine. She wanted to leave on her own terms, with integrity, and avoid giving Antoine any justification to claim she'd used her position to manipulate a customer. Eventually, she handed in her notice, politely and professionally. Her last night at the restaurant was quiet. Ethan and Astra came in for dinner one final time. The moment Catherine appeared, the dog's ears perked up, tail thumping softly against the wood. Catherine knelt and whispered, "We made it, didn't we, girl?" Astra leaned in, pressing her nose into Catherine's shoulder, a silent, profound thank you. Across the table, Ethan watched with a faint smile. "She never warmed up to anyone like this," he said. "You've given her something to look forward to again. And honestly, me, too." They didn't define what their connection was. Not then. There were no grand romantic declarations. Just warmth, quiet understanding, and a shared moment between two people who had each pulled the other from a quiet drift into something more grounded. Ethan's grief hadn't vanished, but he smiled more now. His appetite slowly returned. And Catherine, she felt herself becoming the woman she'd always wanted to be, stable, self-assured, and purposeful. As Ethan prepared to leave that night, he handed her a slim envelope, this time not filled with cash, but with a single handwritten note. "Kindness echoes farther than we'll ever know. You changed my life. Let's keep changing others together." She folded it carefully, pressing it to her heart. Months passed. The boutique flourished under its new direction, featuring local artisans, offering workshops, and sponsoring community events. Catherine helped design the branding herself, her name quietly added under the co-owner section. She still visited Astra often. Ethan became more than a business partner, more than a patron. Their bond deepened naturally, through small gestures and frequent conversations, with the dog always close by, as if gently guiding them towards something neither of them had planned for, but both were finally ready to embrace. And to this day, Catherine often tells the story, not to boast, but to remind others how powerful small acts of compassion can be. One waitress, one disabled dog, one quiet moment that changed everything. If this story moved you, remember, kindness doesn't require wealth, titles, or grand gestures. Sometimes it starts with offering a small scrap of care, a quiet moment of empathy, and watching as that simple act echoes through someone's life. If you believe in the power of compassion, community, and second chances, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and hit the notification bell so you never miss another inspiring story like this one. Share this with someone who could use a reminder that small moments can lead to life-changing connections. And remember, you never know who's watching your kindness or how far it might carry. See you in the next video.